Hello, everybody, and welcome to Taking Control, the ADHD podcast on True Story FM. I'm Pete Wright, and I'm here with Nikki Kinzer.
Hello, everyone. Hello, Pete Wright.
Hi, Nikki. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm all fired up. I got new glasses, new peeps. Yep, I can see better.
Green and orange.
It's really nice to be able to see. Talk about accommodations and how.
Seeing is important.
It is important in your ADHD journey. It's not even seeing or not seeing. It's being mad about seeing all the time. That's really where it gets you. That's where it got me.
That's right.
So got some new peeps, feeling better. See, I can read the stuff that I'm supposed to read. And that's very exciting. And we have a great show. I think we have an awesome guest joining us today. Kim To is an Asian ADHD coach in London. And she is going to talk to us about what it means to look for inclusivity in a culture that has limited awareness and understanding of what ADHD is and how it impacts so many people silently. So the silent focus problems, that's what they are. It's when you ignore those focus problems. But before you do that, please head over to TakeControlADHD.com. You can get to know us a little bit better. You can listen to the show right there on the website or subscribe to the mailing list right there on the homepage, and you'll get an email each time a new episode is released. Connect with us on Twitter or Facebook at TakeControlADHD. And if this show has ever touched you, please head over to patreon.com/theADHD podcast and become a supporting member of this show and this community. We work hard to bring great resources to you by way of this podcast. And supporting members are voting with a few bucks a month that what we're doing is useful to them, is valid, is something that they can use to make their lives better. And we have some stuff coming up over the next couple of months that I think are really exciting. The first one I need to talk about, Text Expander. And this is not, Text Expander is a sometime sponsor of this show. They're our current sponsor of the show for the next 6 months, not this episode, but I do have an announcement. The member workshop this month for February, they have donated a trainer from the Text Expander team named Vic. And Vic is fabulous. And Vic is going to join me next Tuesday. Actually, as you are listening to this, it'll be today. We're going to be recording a walkthrough of what Text Expander is, how it can help you personally, and how, if you work on a team, it can help you with your team. I mean, Text Expander is a mind-blowingly useful tool. You've heard me talk about it before. I use it every single day. It is built into my fingertips at this point. Saves me so much time in working on the computer. And that workshop, we're recording next week. It will be our February member workshop. And so if you are a member, or if you've ever thought about becoming a member and you want to learn more about Text Expander, patreon.com/theADHD podcast, join us over there, get access to that workshop, and you can get access to our member channels in Discord and send me questions that you want me to ask Vic about Text Expander, how it works, problems you'd like to solve using Text Expander. I use Text Expander to talk to our members every single week. It's a Text Expander snippet that does all the time zone calculations. Amazing. Mind-blowing.
Amazing.
Fantastic. So that is our February workshop. And so that's coming. And Happy Hour. I just want to give a shout out to Happy Hour, which comes to our Supreme members. I just love Happy Hour so much. I missed it in January, Nikki, and it broke my heart that I was not able to be there in January. So the February Happy Hour was just a couple of weeks ago now. It fills my cup just being able to join in on video with a group of people not struggling all the time, but just being able to share lives and jokes and laughs and stories and get to know each other a little bit better. So that is a member benefit, but it is absolutely it's something I cherish personally. So
me too.
I wanted to shout that out. What do we have to news? What kind of news do you have for this week?
You know what? No news this week.
No, I had all
the
news.
We're going to go straight into Kim. Yes,
goodness.
You had all the news.
Let's go into our interview. Let's do it. Let's go ahead and let's call Kim To. Kim To is CEO and founder of Flair, a new platform designed to help you access a range of healthcare services to manage your life with ADHD. She joins us today to talk about the tool and her work as an ADHD coach, building a practice around inclusivity and understanding. Kim, welcome to the ADHD podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me. Gosh, that sounded so important. I was sitting there going, wow, does this sound like that? Because I don't feel like I'm doing anything important. But when you say it sounds important.
It is important. Absolutely.
It is important.
Welcome.
It is absolutely important. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Now, you've got a fascinating background. But you are you jumped ship from big business and decided, you know what, ADHD coaching is my jam.
Yeah, it's a bit crazy. Well, like my background is pretty much, I worked a bit in management consulting and then got a bit bored and went back to school to study development because I thought I was going to work for the UN. And I realized I didn't want to work for the UN. It was very bureaucratic and not meritocratic at all. It's just not my sort of vibe. And then I decided to pick the next hardest industry, which was finance, because I thought, you know what, why not try it? It sounds exciting. I think at the time, Brexit was happening and I was like, wow, financial markets is moving. I really want to be involved. So I just thought it would be an exciting place to be. Then after working in finance, I guess when the pandemic happened, I was basically working from home like everybody else and realized, something's going on. And that, along with many other women who, were undiagnosed for a long time, realized that I had ADHD. And so that really shifted a whole sort of mindset and a shift in career for me because I thought, well, I really need to lean into what, ADHD is about and what my strengths are. So that's why I jumped ship from finance to ADHD coaching.
So
but
wait a minute. You are a very fresh diagnosis then.
Yeah. Basically December 2020.
No way. That's fantastic.
Yeah. It doesn't sound too long ago, but for me it feels really long.
Well,
because
it doesn't sound too long ago in hindsight, but as you're living it and learning and realizing, like, what was that like? Getting that, that confirmation that, hey, you're living with ADHD.
I think it's really shocking. I mean, because I guess first because I'm Asian and in our culture, we don't talk about neurodiversity. We don't talk about any of these things. So it came as a shock to me because I thought, oh, is something wrong with me? Like I can't keep a job. I can't keep my, super high paying job, which I worked really hard to get. Like, am I a failure?
Mm-hmm.
Am I a failure to my family? Like it was really hard. And then the other thing is also obviously the female side, right? Like I thought, the more I kind of went online and realized a lot of females are undiagnosed statistically. And the more women I started speaking to, I realized that a lot of women were getting diagnosed the same time as me. So it was really shocking. But then, really shocking. But then, a relief because I always knew I was different and finally had an answer to why and finally found a community. So it's a lot of mixed feelings.
How did it come about? What made you even think about getting a diagnosis?
Yeah, so really it was, again, the pandemic, because I guess before that I was, doing things like going to the gym 3-4 times a week, seeing friends, like my life was very stimulated. And then when suddenly we had to work from home and I was working, 12-hour days, like the markets were going crazy. I was pretty much waking up, working, going to sleep. And that was when I became really restless and quite depressed. And I actually got diagnosed with severe depression during that phase of time because there was just no stimulation. Like I couldn't leave my flat. Like if I went to the park, I would get told off because at that time you couldn't leave unless you were exercising. And so it was just a nightmare situation. And what really kind of prompted me to have a look, because I was already diagnosed with dyslexia back at university. And so I Googled, does dyslexia have to do with something with me not paying attention? And that was when I realized that there is a high correlation between dyslexia and ADHD. And when I read the symptoms, everything just made sense.
I want to go back to your family. You dropped. You said the question of, "Am I a failure to my family?" How'd that hit?
Really hard, like really, really hard. I mean, even now, I haven't met barely any Asians who have ADHD. Maybe they're not diagnosed, maybe not. And I can't even talk about these feelings with someone who doesn't come from, a high pressured culture where, success is a certain way. You think of, it's like the Asian minority myth, lawyers, doctors, all that stuff. And it was just really hard. Like I remember telling my mom, I'm going to leave my finance job. I have something called ADHD. And the thing that my mom said to me was, you can't have this. You're too intelligent. No way do you have
Oh,
this. Yeah. And it really bothered me. Yeah. But that's the culture. And, I'm not angry. That's why I trained as an ADHD coach, because I want more visibility in my community about neurodiversity, more acceptance, and just more people, talking about it. And I guess just to make sure like the world knows about ADHD, that it transcends, gender, culture, and there's so much more when we think about ADHD, because I do think like trauma has a role to play in ADHD, and that's definitely like a theme in my life. Like trauma makes amplifies a lot of
mhm.
my symptoms. So these are the things that I kind of that's why I'm striving towards inclusivity and diversity in my practice.
I mean, are you seeing more and more people with Asian people with ADHD coming to you?
Well, actually, I actually found a community online, ADHD. Sorry, I can't remember the Facebook group at the top of my head, but actually, all my coaching clients currently have been Asian clients, and I've learned so much from them, and really grateful that more Asians are getting the help that they need and coming out, and yeah, trying to learn about ADHD and accepting it.
I remember coming out to coming out to my parents with ADHD, and it was an interesting
Yeah.
experience because I did it also as an adult. It's been almost 20 years, but or it's been over 20 years, but their feeling was I think there was probably a dose of, no, there's no way you have ADHD because you are XYZ, but it was very much more, you can't have ADHD because that would imply that I have failed somehow. I would have noticed, like I would have known if that were real. And it took a long time to align with the experience of, the reason I did these things when I was in junior high and high school is explainable with the ADHD diagnosis in a way that it is not explainable any other way.
Yeah.
I feel for it because I know that I am sure there is a cultural thing going on there too, and also a parental thing, and the weight of both of those elements together on your parents,
Yeah.
it has got to be heavy.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking about this because I also said to my mom, it's genetics. And I think you might have it because I've seen your struggles. Like, I've seen your emotional dysregulation, and I can understand it now. Like, before I didn't, and now I understand it. And I think for my mom in particular, to think it's genetics, like to think that she might be responsible, I think that is really hard on her.
Yeah.
And yeah, obviously a lot. Yeah, so I don't bring it up anymore, but I realized even with dyslexia, I remember telling my friend back at university, oh, I just got diagnosed with dyslexia. I'm going to get extra time on exams. The response was, there's no way you have dyslexia. You're too intelligent. So I do feel like there is this thing where, just lack of awareness that people associate neurodiversity with not being intelligent. Like, I don't know. That's my experience of interacting with people.
I've had several Asian clients in the past with in the several years that I've coached, and something that just clicked when you were talking about your background with your family is perfectionism has definitely been a key trend or pattern that I'm seeing in all of them, especially in women.
Mm, yeah, I agree with
I'm
that.
curious what you think. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. There is like a lot of pressure on females in particular. Like from my experience being the firstborn and being a female, like I had to be the perfect, the perfect Asian child. Like straight A's, I got. Going to the best university, I got. The best jobs, I got. The highest paying salary. That was literally sort of the bar that was set, especially for females. Well, for me in particular, I can't talk about other female Asians, but perfectionism is what the goalpost is for a lot of Asians. Um, Females in particular, I think there's a lot more to it because in our culture, I guess the female, especially if you're the oldest, you look after your siblings. Like I always looked after my siblings. Like my siblings got to explore whatever career they had, but for me, if I came out and said I wanted to be an artist, for example, that would not go down well. So definitely perfectionism. It's also probably like an immigrant sort of thing as well, like being first generation. The image of success is perfectionism. But yeah, there is a lot going on. Definitely perfectionism is a theme, but another theme that I've noticed with my clients is definitely trauma. So, not being not being able to speak your mind, not being able to be your true self. Like if you, especially with ADHD, you're probably making a lot more, I don't know, I wouldn't say mistakes, but you're making different decisions, right? Compared to maybe somebody else, and that doesn't go down well. Like I remember being 15 and I had aspired to be a fashion designer when I was young because I just loved making clothes. And when I still remember being 10 and cutting up my clothes. And I remember my dad shouting at me and going, "You do not do that. Like, why would you do that?" Instead of asking, "Oh, how come you did that? Like, why did you want to make it into a crop top?" It's very different. So I reflect back and think there's a lot of things that I did which explains that ADHD can explain, but how my parents reacted is definitely very traumatizing and doesn't really help when you want to lean into who you are.
Yeah, totally. I could totally see that. Like the ADHD just like prevents the gate from closing on the application of scissors to perfectly fine clothes. Like
Mm-hmm.
I just
Mm-hmm.
there is nothing that's going to stop me from turning these clothes into some other clothes. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
I get
Right,
that.
right.
Sorry, Nikki.
Sorry,
Oh,
Nikki.
no worries. So I'm just curious with your coaching, how do you work with clients around the perfectionism and the trauma and some of the things that you're seeing?
Yeah, this is quite tricky because definitely for me, a lot of it is 80% listening and 20%,
Mm-hmm.
asking the tough questions, asking like, so
Mm-hmm.
where does this image of you come from? Like, can you tell me more about your family dynamic? Is it different to how you interact with friends, teachers, family? So it's a very fine line to tread, but I think
Yeah.
being able to say, I know what you've went through, I can understand that
Mm-hmm.
really helps with those discussions. I think it's really hard as well because I feel like in ADHD coaching, if you ever talk about the past, it's like you might be going down the counseling route. So being super
Right.
careful to bring it back to the present and bringing back to, okay, so we realize this might come from your childhood. How can we kind of move forward? What are the next steps? So
Mm-hmm.
that sort of approach. But to be honest, I'm still kind of developing my own way of addressing it. It's not
Mm-hmm.
not trauma is not something that so I trained at the IACT, so International ADHD Center, actually in the US, and trauma wasn't really a big topic in our
Mm-hmm.
training. So I think it's an area that does need to be a bit more kind of researched or talked about. So can't give you a good answer, but hopefully that gives a bit of color.
Oh, well, absolutely. And it makes sense because when we talk about RSD and we talk about rejection sensitivity dysphoria, that is coming from some kind of experience,
Yeah.
some kind of
Hmm.
trauma that you have felt.
Yeah.
And I think that the more research they can do on that too will help coaches be able to address it in a way that, like you said, isn't
Yeah.
therapeutic But I agree. I think there has to be some history that we need to know, in order to go forward, but not as a therapist where they keep talking about that and processing that.
Yeah.
There is definitely a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think this is really
Interesting.
important as more adults get diagnosed with ADHD because, the conversation between adults and ADHD has only really occurred in the past 10 years, right? So there is a lot more, like my life didn't, I guess my ADHD journey didn't begin as they got my diagnosis. It began when I was
Correct.
young.
Yeah.
So we need to know
Mm-hmm.
like all of that. So I'm hoping more and more
Mm-hmm.
discussions and yeah, definitely trauma is definitely where I want to focus on going forward and
Mm-hmm.
talking about.
But I guess I
Mm-hmm.
want to poke at that a
Mm-hmm.
little bit too, because I think there's well, to back up, we had somebody on the show, Sonal Singh, who is a wonderful human being and coach, and at the time was India's really only licensed certified ADHD coach.
Right.
And
Oh, wow.
you
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
right, so you talk about we're talking about the cultural sort of weight of responsibility that you take on as an Asian person who is taking, at least to some degree, ownership of teaching people in the culture, in the community, how to talk about and think about ADHD and the associated, any associated disorders that you may be living with in a healthy and responsible way. That is really heavy. And so we, as soon as we mentioned trauma, we've had these conversations before about capital T trauma, which is the major incidents, traumatic singular events, and small t trauma, the trauma that is the insidious kind of behavioral trauma or bullying or treatment that comes that add up into traumatic behavior. Like that's very much considered a therapeutic experience. Like you need a trauma therapist to go talk about that. And I'm curious your take on how coaching and therapy is accepted in from that cultural perspective. Like at what point would you see your parents going to a therapist to talk about anything?
Yeah, that's probably not happening in my lifetime, unfortunately. And it does pain me to see just because the older generation, there's just so much trauma embedded. And I can share that my parents were Vietnamese refugees. So I know in their DNA and their system, this trauma has just been encoded.
Huge.
And, just to even suggest for them to go, firstly, there isn't even like therapists that can actually speak Vietnamese. There's not a lot. So, more Asians need to train as ADHD coaches, as therapists, as, holistic healers, whatever, right? But I think unfortunately I don't see that happening with my parents' generation. However, with my generation, I'm way more optimistic because of, especially I think the pandemic has just opened up so much conversation about mental health, especially when you talk about therapy and ADHD coaching. I think that is incredibly important because I couldn't do my ADHD coaching journey without dealing with my trauma. And going forward, when I talk about holistic sort of health, I'm talking about, yoga. I'm actually studying to be an acupuncturist because I think there's a lot, that I want to explore with Chinese medicine when it comes to
Mm-hmm.
dealing with, ADHD and trauma, etc. So I think healing can come out. Healing comes in many forms, essentially. And for me, yoga has definitely been important for calming my nervous system. Um, and there's other ways to heal, outside therapy and ADHD coaching. But I do think for me, therapy and ADHD coaching was like the crucial thing for me to get a good foundation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
gonna surprise Nikki. I know I'm gonna surprise you when I say this. I do yoga too, and it's straight dope. I love it so much. Once
Yeah.
I learned
Yeah.
how to downward dog, I get great calm from the downward dog. You bring me a warrior pose any day.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's right. So I'm curious about Flair.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. So it's come for it's many iterations, but essentially for me, Flair was, embracing your uniqueness And I was
Mm-hmm.
just reflecting on my life, like how could I embrace my uniqueness, beyond my ADHD as well, because my life I'm just not about my ADHD diagnosis. I'm so much more than that, right? Beyond that,
Mm-hmm.
for me, I envision it as like a go-to place where you can get that holistic healing and growth, not just medication. I think medication is really important. I take medication, but I remember taking medication and thinking, okay, well, what next? Like, I want to grow as a
Mm-hmm.
person with my ADHD. Like, where else can I go to? And I just didn't know where to start. So I envision it as a place where, people can go to and find that healing journey and growth journey all in one place, like whether that's art therapists which knows about ADHD or trauma,
Mm-hmm.
or it's yoga teachers that know about ADHD, because honestly I cannot attend a yoga class that is more than 45 minutes. It literally needs to be really fast, like 20 minutes in and out sort of thing. So
Right.
I like my
yeah.
mindfulness in a microwave.
Like really, really intense, not yin yoga,
Yeah.
can't do it. But the point is that I would really love it to be a place where practitioners who are offering many different types of healing can actually have an awareness of ADHD and actually
Mm-hmm.
offer that and make it more accessible for people like me, so that's how.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a long journey, I think. So I would encourage
Mm-hmm.
any practitioners who are interested to join the movement. That's what I'm interested in.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
need to
That's
I just need
great.
to hear a little bit more about like what is it? It is like a center that you're building, or is there an app, or is it a online community?
So yeah, so I think it would be, first it has to be organic growth. So online community where people are interested in holistic healing as well.
Hmm.
So, and then the other thing is I'm envisioning it as not a marketplace, but there are practitioners who would be on the platform. And for
Mm-hmm.
example, someone who comes in there and be like, okay, well, I am interested in, I just got diagnosed. I'm interested in learning more about my body, exploring this and exploring that, and we could
Hmm.
direct them to the best services. Because I think that doesn't happen when you go to a GP and tell them I have ADHD. They don't, they kind of give you
Yeah, not at
pills.
all.
They don't really care like what you want in terms of your journey. So I'm hoping that would be a
Mm-hmm.
place where I can connect you with a practitioner to help you with your journey.
Sure,
Oh, it
sure, sure.
sounds wonderful. It sounds wonderful. So this is something you're creating. It's not available right now. Is that
No,
correct?
yeah, I'm
Okay.
definitely creating. So it's a lot of talking
Mm-hmm.
to people, finding the right practitioners who want to help people with ADHD, who want
Mm-hmm.
to learn more about what it means to yeah, to work with people with
Yeah.
ADHD. So
Well, what I
Mm-hmm.
love about it, and I mean this in as the compliment that is
okay.
fully intended here. This is the most ADHD that I think I have seen on this show. That you were diagnosed under 2 years ago, and that you decided I'm going to start an online clearinghouse of professionals to help other people with ADHD, and I'm just going to go ahead and do it right now and totally upend my life and do this thing. That is as pro ADHD a compliment as I can offer. That's very, very cool
Yeah,
and
pure
bold,
That's awesome.
super
hyper
bold. Yeah, right, right.
Mm-hmm.
I can see it.
And
It's like,
so needed.
yeah,
I mean, that's the thing that I love about what you're saying here with Flair. And I hope that anybody that's listening that wants to be a part of it will reach out to you, and we'll make sure that we have all of the information available, because it's so overwhelming. You can go, like you said, to your GP and they can say, oh, well, try mindfulness or
Yeah,
yoga.
yeah.
That might help. But then what do you do with that?
hmm hmm
Where do you
Where do you
go? And
start?
so,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Well,
exactly.
and there are a
Yeah.
lot of like we've run into a lot of like holistic healing centers, right? But those
Mm,
healing centers don't offer a focus on ADHD,
yeah.
and that is a piece. Like ADHD is secondary to the sure you can get acupuncture and meditation teaching and yoga and all and
Mhm.
therapy, but the real outward focus on this is something that people
Mhm.
with ADHD, this is a home for you for
Yeah.
your healing efforts
Yeah.
is I think really special.
But I also
Mhm.
think it places emphasis on practitioners being more aware of
Yeah.
ADHD, because I feel like, especially, I don't know, I went to my therapist speaking about ADHD and they didn't really care. And I was like, this is so important to my DNA.
Yeah.
Like, and I've had so many people ask me, I want to find, a therapist that actually knows about ADHD. And you realize, these practitioners, they don't even get a text, they don't even get a chapter on ADHD. And so I'm more
Yeah.
interested in practitioners who actually care about our community and want to support our community and invest that time. So I think that's really important. And our community needs it. We need more practitioners who are aware of ADHD and how we work and, actually care, because we deserve, a well-rounded healing options and services beyond
Mhm.
beyond medication and beyond ADHD coaching. ADHD coaching is great, right? But for
Mhm.
me, it didn't help with stuff like, my nervous system being on, full whack all the time. Like I needed more stuff, And so,
Mhm.
yeah, that's how I thought of the idea.
Mhm.
I feel
Mhm.
like that's like
It's great.
that would be the caption underneath my LinkedIn headshot. Pete Wright, nervous system on full whack all the time.
Yes. Please help. Send
Right?
help.
That's right.
Help.
Yes.
Help.
Kim, you're awesome. Where do you want to send people to learn more about you? Connect with you on LinkedIn. We'll put that. Is that okay?
Yeah, definitely LinkedIn. Honestly, I'm such a prolific LinkedIn person now. I have my old employers on it. So I just continuously write. Like I'm like, yeah, new journey. This is what I'm up to. But yeah, definitely LinkedIn. My Instagram for my ADHD coaching is own your Flair. So own your Flair. Linked.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
What a
Yeah.
great name.
Yay.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And
I
that's
write
the
a lot.
website too, ownyourflair.com.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. And I write a lot on Medium, so you can find me on medium.com as well. So yeah.
Well, and I assume with Zoom, you work with clients all over the world.
Yes, I do. I
Mhm.
do. I'm very excited. So actually most of my clients have been in the US because I think ADHD coaching
Mm.
is just more well known there.
Yeah.
And I'm starting to get British clients, but again, ADHD coaching is so niche here and it's still up and coming. I'm hoping not so much because there's so many people getting diagnosed right now. But
Yeah.
my goal really is, beyond the US and beyond the UK. So definitely Asia, where I'm from, where my home
Mhm.
is. So I really, I'm thinking of ways to do it, such as translating my content into, either Chinese or Vietnamese or other languages. I'm still thinking of ways I can branch out there
Mhm.
because unfortunately I can only speak English. I can speak Vietnamese, but I won't be able to coach in Vietnamese that well. So, there's a
Mhm.
language barrier there. But yeah, all over the world
Sure.
is what I aim
Awesome.
Wonderful.
for.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Well, we sure appreciate you taking your time at the end of a long London day for
I
you to sit down
know.
with us and talk about what you're
Yeah,
up
I'm
to.
so sorry I'm late. I would have London traffic. What can I say?
It's an ADHD podcast.
That's right.
No one cares.
No one cares if you're
We're
late.
okay.
Yeah.
We're okay.
Yeah.
It's nice to
So
meet you
thank you.
both.
And you
You
too.
too.
Thank you
You
very
too.
much.
Take care.
On
Thank you.
behalf of Kim Toe and Nikki Kinzer, I'm Pete Wright. And we'll see you next week right here on Taking Control, the ADHD podcast.